something of a riddle here to start this edition of Overdrive Radio. So, what do a cargo van expediting owner-operator with just a few years' experience and Overdrive's 2021 small fleet champ, near 30 truck Silver Creek transportation owner and president Jason Cowan have in common, outside of the simple fact that both are transportation business owners? We heard from the former, cargo van owner Breon Thomas, last week, and the answer to the question is so fundamental to business ownership it might seem overly simplistic. Yet both Thomas and Silver Creek's Jason Cowan recognized this fact about business ownership, best voiced by Thomas in last week's podcast.
If you weren't born in an entrepreneurial situation, you don't know any entrepreneurs, you're going to approach this like you have done everything else in the past, which is hustle, 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 hustle. You hit a brick wall when you hustle, because entrepreneurship is about systems.
Systems, indeed, of support to ensure you negotiate the next load at a level of profit commensurate to keep the business afloat, feed and clothe and shelter the family back home, and leave you plenty to invest in the future of the business. If it's growth that you're after, beyond a single truck or cargo van as the case may be, you can't get a much better example of systems-focused pursuit of success than the 2021 small fleet champ, Jason Cowan. I'm Todd Dills, your host for today's edition of Overdrive Radio for June 1st, 2022, and we'll hear much more from Cowan about systems put in place to underpin a company culture that's about well more than operating at a profit. Like I said, his example speaks to the value of the right team and a clear vision. As recently as 2019, as regular readers and listeners will know, the business sat at just 9 trucks after a couple decades and more in existence. Cowan assembled a brain trust made up of sons Zane and Zeb Cowan, already involved in the family business, and many others, with the goal of figuring out how to reach a growth goal of 30 trucks. COVID set them back a bit, particularly when it comes to new equipment purchases, but by this spring, the company was just about there. Maintaining a culture that emphasizes personal growth for all involved, to the ultimate benefit of the entire company, is a challenge that's always top of mind and that has helped drive growth too.
And one of the things that we want to avoid is we want folks to grow. We want them to be better drivers, and we want them to have better lives. And we don't want to, I had a friend tell me one time, he said, we don't have 20 years of experience. We have 1 year experience 19 times over. And that's what we want to avoid, because we all need to be learning something every day and learning. And I think back in my life, when we look back even on the journey we've had the last 2 or 3 years with our growth plan, that, wow, I wish, I'd known then what we know now. And that's just been, because we're always trying to learn, trying to do things better, trying to be better.
Be better. Not easy to do when fuel is $5 or $6 a gallon and demand is sliding, but Silver Creek's well poised to ride the waves with a diversified mix of freight running on dry bulk and liquid tankers, flatbeds, dry vans, and more. So let's dive into a brief tour through Cowan's systems-focused approach to safety, compliance, maintenance, and the rest of what is for sure an example of trucking excellence. Before we do, though, quick note to those among you who may be running small fleets today and share in that drive for ongoing excellence. If you ended 2021 operating at least 3 power units with Motor Carrier Authority, I'd like to personally encourage you to enter Overdrive's Small Fleet Champ competition for this year. Get your entries in by the end of June to put your fleet in the running at overdriveonline.com/2022SFC. Sam, Frank, Charlie. Finalists in 2 categories will be honored at the National Association of Small Trucking Companies annual conference in October in Nashville, where winners will be announced. Again, enter at this website address, overdriveonline.com/2022SFC. Sam, Frank, Charlie.
Bring a driver in, typically that's the first place they start. So we want to tell them our story, because you know how it is when a driver comes in, hey, what do you pay, and that's not what we're looking for. We've talked about all that a million times. So we just begin, so okay, here's our culture, where we started. We kind of had this wall. I guess it kind of makes it's what I call a storyboard, where we started, and what we're doing, and how we're making it happen, and some of the things that we do. So what we do is we walk through the building, then we tell the story of where we came from and what we did, and how we get back to the community. That's one of the things we talk about. The FFA is one of the groups that we spoke with at Zeb when he was in high school. So the local magazine did a story on us back in October about our trailers, the trailers that we do for the different nonprofits, and so kind of build that in as to, hey, this is what our culture is. Because then we have Amber. You remember Amber?
Yeah, hey, Amber. Hi. Good to see you.
And so Amber's the one that keeps us all. One of the cool things that I learned years ago was that I'm not good at everything. I think I am.
Right.
And so it's good to have people that are good at what they do, and because it's hard. She's better at telling the driver you have to do this than I am. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. She's like,
he likes to be likable.
Sure. not so you, huh?
And it's funny. Everything we just keep talking about culture. I just want to, and it's not perfect a lot of times, but I wish it was. But it's create a culture of that. I think one of the hardest things with these drivers is to get them to buy into the vision that you have, that they're not just here, not just to, they
where it's more than words, right? Like it's
let's say you have one, instead of them coming in and saying something to they'll quit, and then you talk to them 6 months later and like, oh well, I backed that trailer over a pole and I thought y'all would be mad at me, so I got me another job before you fired me. But
right, yeah.
We weren't going. We talked about that yesterday. We had a trailer damaged, and it was damaged bad, and nobody said anything. And so I told her. So in part of her safety video this week is to say, "Hey, look,
yeah,
And she actually put it in. We don't fire people for tearing up equipment, but we got to know
the problem.
It could have been a safety issue. It
Yeah.
could have been a lot of things,
Yeah.
and so we want you to tell us that. And then I think she didn't put on there, but I put on. It's better to have Amber fuss at you for a minute and watch a video than to hurt somebody,
All right. Did anybody come forward?
No. Well, she just now sent it out. Nobody's come forward to tear the trailer up.
No.
Well, and it was really kind of a shock because one of the drivers said, "Hey, this trailer is kicked to the right. And it's pulling down the road, crooked." And we're like, "Okay, we'll send it over for alignment." We sent it over to the alignment shop, and the guy called. He's like, "Axle's knocked back 4 inches, and brand new trailer too."
Wow.
And he's like, "We're going to have to replace the whole subframe axles and the whole show," which I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to tell you that. But and that's what I think. I think when they've been in other places, maybe, okay, you're fired. Boom.
You might call it a culture of something of a team effort that Cowan is trying to foster. A sense that communication is necessary to maintain that culture with an acknowledgement that mistakes happen and can be corrected if every team member holds themselves accountable for communicating those mistakes to glean support and making the correction before issues compound. Standing in front of a wall of images from Silver Creek Transportation's past, Cowan outlined his father's history with a John Deere equipment dealership and the broader agricultural heritage of the business, headquartered in Henderson, Kentucky.
Agriculture's been kind of part of our heritage. And so like the tractor on the top left, you'll see some of them that we still do out there. That was Seb's state fair one year when he was in high school. Yeah. And of course, went to prom there and had we support the band and we actually built the band, that trailer so they can, it's cool. Lit up inside and all that kind of stuff. So then, just different things through the years of what we've done, where we came from, and one of our drivers that's been with us the longest, he and his wife. So, because we try to, longevity. His name is Richard Riddle. My oldest son worked for a little bit, but he wasn't really into the trucks. He wanted 8 hours in the shower. He works for Rural King. He's he's a department manager for the Rural King. And they're like a tractor supply.
Cowan's next 2 sons, Zane and Zeb, as noted, do participate in the family business, Zane overseeing the shop. On the way to that shop, Cowan walked me down a hallway he called the quote-unquote safety lane.
Well, no, this is one of our little ideas that we do. She will put a sticker on the truck somewhere that they're supposed to pre-trip. If they pull the number off that sticker, she gives them $50.
Okay.
If they don't, at the end of the week, she posts everywhere there was a sticker and tells them how much money they left on the table. And she doesn't put them where they would have to, right here under the hood latch, I'm going to check the oil. And she
Yeah,
knows,
I'm not getting underneath everything to put it on there, so I'm gonna just put it in there.
and you believe, so just try there again, just something to say. Clean inspection gets them $100. If they find a sticker, that's $50. There's just, easy ways to do what you're supposed to be doing.
In the safety lane hallway, too, Safety Director Amber Jenkins posts Silver Creek's CSA SMS scores and violation performance for all to see, with detail on areas where there's room for improvement. It's just kind of broadcasting
This is where we're at.
Yeah.
This is when this one's gonna fall off. This all that's like 30 points right there.
Yeah.
It's
What frustrates us is she'll have it down to nothing, and then we'll get 2 inspections in a week, bang, bang, and then you're like,
And they hit us right when we were transitioning over from OmniTrax to Samsara, and the remarking is where it got us.
Yeah.
And then they're like, bam, and you're like,
Yeah, what was the issue? I mean, you guys were just kind of unfamiliar with the device, and so they weren't
some of
using
them
it quite
were,
right.
yeah. And then actually some of the hours of service ones was trying to then learn how to use the exemptions on there is quite different than how OmniTrax had it, like the adverse driving and stuff.
The culture, the training, the educate, it's an ongoing battle, and to get folks to buy into that, that's the big part of it. When they see that, by doing this, we're on the road more, we're down less, we can do more for them because, insurance rates are lower and customers are happier, and it's one thing that we have learned is, and I know you know this too, and that the conference I got to go to in Arizona was really interesting for us because we got to talk about small carriers, but we were there with all the large carriers.
Cowan makes reference there to Overdrive Sister Fleet magazine CCJ's Solutions Summit, held this past December. He spoke there on a panel around employee retention after being named Small Fleet Champ in early November. About those large carriers, Cowan was impressed with
how data-driven they are. And one of the things that we've noticed, whether it's your whether it's your financials, whether it's your safety, no matter what it is, the more data you have, the better you can make decisions. And so many times we think things that aren't true, maybe not in a way that we're trying to be deceitful, but we think, okay, if I'm a driver, maybe I'm driving more than, or driving less than I think I am, or maybe I'm doing things that I didn't know. And so she's able to pull this data up and say, here we are. And if we just do this, if we just make sure, if we just take an extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes, check our equipment a little more, if something we can tell the shop sooner, any way to save, we can do better because it's,
I mean, this is a good way of kind of giving folks a way to interact with the data, right? Because if you don't sort of provide that a direct way to interact with it, it's never going to make any difference at all.
We don't.
So this is just full transparency. Here's what
it is. How one guy can, one driver can really mess up the whole show. And one of the things that we want to avoid is we want folks to grow. We want them to be better drivers, and we want them to have better lives. And we don't want to, I had a friend tell me one time, he said, we don't have 20 years of experience. We have 1 year experience 19 times over. And that's what we want to avoid, because we all need to be learning something every day and learning. And I think back in my life, when we look back even on the journey we've had the last 2 or 3 years with our growth plan, that, wow, I wish, I'd known then what we know now. And that's just been, because we're always trying to learn, trying to do things better, trying to be better. We always try to be ahead of where we need to be.
Right.
And when we had 9 trucks at the start of 19, we knew we wanted to get to 30 trucks in 3 years. And with COVID, we've been unable to get some equipment. We're really close. But, so with 9 trucks, we brought Amber on full time in safety. And all my friends were like, man, that's nuts. Nobody brings full-time safety director on 9 trucks. And that's why I'm not bringing her on for 9 trucks. We're bringing her on for 30 trucks. Yeah. I want her, when we get where we are now, to be up to speed. And so that investment in her turned out to be good for us because, for one, she knows she knows now she's in the groove.
Yep.
So if we add trucks, there's no, she's just got it down. We don't have to go. And then the second thing was, whether you have 9 or whether you have 30, you need to be safe. She began to put things in to help keep those numbers down, because it was kind of funny. We talked about bringing her on, and the week that we hired her, we got audited.
Wow.
Or like the week before.
It was like right.
Yeah, I mean, right at the time we were interviewing her, they sent me an email that said, "Hey, your number's up for an audit."
And
During COVID, it was like,
have you done that before?
No. And so, I went through it because
before.
she wasn't on board yet.
Yeah.
And so, that was one of those things too that you always dread.
Yeah.
But it was a really painless process, and I mean, it turned out really good for us.
It's off-site audit, or is
it
that?
was during COVID.
During COVID, so they
nobody came out here.
She didn't come, and so actually, what she said was, "If you'll sit at your computer, and when I ask you for something, send it to me." She said, "We'll be done in a day or so." And it was, it was pretty painless.
You guys have a safety rating already? Before that?
No, we had done our new entrant audit, in 2008, I guess, when we when we moved to the Silver Creek.
But no, did you get a safety rating after this audit or no?
No, then they weren't.
It was non-rateable.
And here's what they did with us. They only picked drivers that had been inspected and maybe a driver that was in an accident. So they didn't even, she didn't look at anybody that was random, so to speak. It was if they had an issue. If we had, somebody who had been,
Which helped bring the clinic that you used to light.
Yeah.
To adjust
and that was one of the things. We had our drug testing clinic, and we'd used them forever. Mm-hmm. Well, they lost their certification with the DOT and didn't tell us.
Wow.
And so as she's checking our files, she called me and she said, why are you getting 10 panel drug screens when the DOT only requires 5? Mm-hmm. And we were like, we just send them up there, Yeah. And so she's like, I don't know, I'm gonna check into this. And so she called them, and the lady that ran the medical center uptown said, well, the DOT came in and wanted us to change our bathroom and sink, and we didn't want to do all that, so we just let that go. And she said, well, did you tell your carriers? And she's like, no. And when you look on all of our...
They all said 10 panel.
They all said 10 panel, but they all said DOT drug screen on them.
Yeah.
And so they actually didn't give us any trouble. And we turned around and sent every driver that afternoon to,
and did a new pre-employment with
Wow.
But, and she was really upset with them. And so then, of course, then that lady in turn calls me and is like, hey, Jason, we didn't know, like, that could have been a big deal, because something like that could, but she knew that we had done our due diligence. Mm-hmm. And I think because the paperwork still said DOT, they didn't really hammer us on that. And she didn't tell us to get new drug screens because, some of these guys have been here, 12, 15 years, but we decided as a company we'd do that in that way.
Yeah.
Now Amber does that. We send her to training and she does all that. So we're part of the NASTIC group,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so
cool.
That's cool. All right, let's see where
you use their drug program.
Yeah, Amber's been trained through that, and they.
A lot of the guys prefer that a lot better too than sitting and waiting.
Having
clinic,
to go up to
and
a
then go
clinic
get seen. I just like, hey, give me 15 minutes to get the bathroom set up and ready, and you're in and out.
So you're the test administrator.
Yes.
Yep, she does that, right?
Investment in people, in this case, leads to those systems coming in-house, with Silver Creek Transportation now administering its own drug testing program for randoms. Still standing in the safety lane hallway, Cowan pointed to an outline of speed-related metrics from the company's in-cab Samsara devices, which offer individual operators a score on their performance relative to speed limits, and, in the hallway here, a window on other drivers' own performance with names removed. Yet another way, though, for operators to interact with company-wide data. Cowan got a look at his own performance on that then recent behind-the-wheel trip he referenced earlier.
Well, when I drove I think it's kind of neat because the Samsara, I don't know how familiar you are with that, but it grades you every day there again, that's handy information to have because it helps you be aware. You know, a lot of those things I think that we, you know, because I've been on both sides. I've been the driver and now we're in the company is the, you know, I think y'all, they're again, part of our culture. We don't want people to be afraid or say, oh man, that's just one more thing for them to fuss at me about. Right. We try not to do any of that, but what can we do to be coachable? You know, what can we do to be better on the road? And, you know, I think we look at it from that aspect seems to help us, you know, more than, hey, you know, you're running down the road too fast. All our trucks are set at 70 miles an hour. Right. So if we have a driver running out west, he's going to be up here. If we've got a guy running, you know, they're going to be more running through town.
Well, I mean, they're not going to, the Samsara has a speed limit on there. Yeah, it knows the speed limit. And then if
they're running out west and they got a high speed limit, they're never going to go over.
They're never going to be on that sheet. Never going to be on it. So you look there, but I was saying the first time I used it and when I signed out, it said, you know, your score is, 85 or something. I took a load of plastic to Georgia and you know, it is kind of neat to, you know, we don't have driver facing cameras. We just have the forward facing cameras. And that's, you know, things that just try to do so we can do better.
I mean, those cameras have been, you know, saving grace for us when you got the people out there brake checking and all.
Oh yeah.
You know, then they can't be like, oh, your driver hit me. I'm like, well, you just came. I had one video pop up where my driver is driving, getting off an exit, and here comes a car on the shoulder.
Oh my gosh.
To get around him.
That happened to me in New Orleans the other day. You know, just take off a light. They're just trying to crowd you in. You know, and that's like safety is something that we really, you know, it's something that everybody says, and honestly, you know, it is a mixture of, you know, getting the loads hauled. How can we be safe? Not browbeating. You know, how can we be? And you know, one of the things I know, I'm not the only one that's told you this, but you know, when we had the ELD mandate come in, and everybody's, I'm going to retire. I'm going to quit. I'm not going to do that. I don't like that. And now, if something happens to their device and they have to run paper, they're like, when am I going to get another tablet? When, you know, I don't want to run paper. Because, you know, we all love things that are easy. Yeah. And now, you know, actually even the ELD provider that we have now it's just getting easier. I mean, you know, it does so much of it for you. Yeah. And, you know, you can run, and there again, that's one of those things where, you know, here's the deal. Why would you want to work more than 14 hours a day anyway? You know, I mean, I understand there's times you want to get home and get, you know, things like that, but you can get your time in.
Amber Jenkins' role isn't limited to safety and compliance systems. Her role extends into PM scheduling with Zane Cowan in the Silver Creek shop.
She's organized. So she works with Zane to keep on track of what PMs need to be done. Yeah. You know, works through our TMS system. So Zane, give us some words of wisdom.
Well, the brake chamber back on a trailer.
That's good. Man, a few words, Tom. It broke.
Finally, if you've learned anything from hearing Jason Cowan talk about his systems-focused approach to the Silver Creek team, I'm sure you'll at least take away this. There's no shortage of good humor in him. Key element, no doubt, of his success in leading the fleet. He enjoys a good laugh. But his son Zane, over maintenance at the company, may indeed be.
Man, a few words.
He's clearly got plenty good humor himself, which he's integrated into his own little system in the shop.
Zane kind of came up with the wall of shame there. If you, that's if you tear up something, you get your name written on it, and you get put on the wall of shame. That's kind of just something fun, you know.
Do the drivers enjoy the fact that this?
Yeah, well, yeah. I think you know they kind of come to learn. It's just good fun, you know? My great nephew works here. He's 17, and they were servicing a truck, and that's off International. And they had it up, and he was moving things around with a forklift and hit it. So, you know, things like that. So, that's funny, but.
Hear more from Jason Cowan about his history learning the trucking business as an owner-operator in his early years and negotiating bulk fuel buying and on-highway fuel discounts as a nearly 30-truck fleet owner. in the Overdrive Radio podcast for May 6th, 2022, if you missed it. Find it and all other episodes via your podcast feed if you're subscribed, or via overdriveonline.com/overdrive-radio. Overdrive Radio is a production of Overdrive, the voice of the American trucker. It's edited and produced by me, Todd Dills, with the ongoing support of trucker songwriter and Overdrive contributor Paul Marhofer. The podcast is backed up further by Overdrive news editor Matt Cole, social media coordinator Holly Young, and executive editor Alex Lockey. Till next time.